author of, hold on, got to get my book, the Sophie Washington uh, children's book series. And so, Tonya, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled that you invited me.
Yes. So we have been talking about your book actually for quite a while as we've started our business and wanted to make sure that we reached out to you and got you connected with us. And so we're really happy that this night came together. So I guess we can go ahead and jump into it. And so, Tanya, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Well, I'm a Houston, Texas based middle grade author of the Sophie Washington series, which is an 11 book series geared to kids ages 8 to 12. And it's about a little girl who lives in the suburbs of Houston and her diverse group of friends. And they get into many adventures, go through the ups and downs of the tween years. And because the books are based in Houston, they highlight the diversity of our community. And prior to writing the series, I was a newspaper reporter and a freelance magazine writer for 10 years. I'm a mom of 3 teens, and I love to write. This is my dream come true. So I really feel blessed that I'm able to write these books that touch the lives of children.
Awesome.
Were you the type of person who was like, when you were a kid, like knee deep in a book or like always writing or anything like that?
Yes, definitely. I was the typical book nerd. I always had a book in my hand. And actually, my mother would take me to the library every week, and I would get a bag full of books and just read all of them. And then in high school, I actually volunteered at the school library, or not the school library, my neighborhood library, shelving books. So I was always reading, and I still read all the time. Today, I read maybe 3 to 4 novels a month.
Oh, that's
And I read a lot of middle grade books too that are in the genre that I write in.
That is good. So when did you decide that? So you were a newspaper editor. So when did you decide that you wanted to get into writing children's books? And then why children's books?
I decided to write children's books when I would read with my own kids. I'd always wanted to write my own book one day. And when I would read with my kids, we would read little chapter books similar to mine. And I noticed just the lack of diversity. And then in particular, I have a daughter and 2 sons, and my sons really were not feeling any of these books. I would try to introduce them to some of the books that I used to love as a child, and they weren't as interested in them. So I was saying, I could write my own series, because I looked at different series like Judy Moody, or there was one called Ready Freddy with a little boy that did different things. And I said, I could write a cute little series like this that would show the diversity of the community here in Houston. We have so many things here that are really interesting, like alligators in the neighborhood, wild boar running through the neighborhood. So there's so many interesting things I've seen in my 14 years living here. And I said, this will be really interesting. So that's kind of how the series was born and how I started writing these books.
That is so cool, but I don't know if I want to see alligator just kind of roam.
Right.
Yeah, I've seen them riding my bike. And one of my friends about a month ago, she saw one in an area that we walk in. And I said, man, next time take a picture so that I can post it so people can see, because there's all kind of little waterways in our community and they come out at different times.
That is too funny.
Yeah, it's something.
So how much of either like yourself or your own experiences do you bring to your books?
I bring quite a bit of my own life into the books. They're, of course, fictional stories, but they're based on experiences I've had with my own kids, because I started writing the Sophie Washington series when my daughter, whose name is Sophia, was the age of the main character. And the books talk about, there's 11 books in the series, and they have her in the spelling bee. My 3 kids were spelling bee champions, and I was a spelling bee judge. One book, they go to Costa Rica. I've taken a trip to Costa Rica. So, and then another book, Hurricane, they are in a hurricane and fleeing it, which I did experience. So the books are based on my actual life experiences. Quite a few of them are. But then they are fictional. I do make up different things too in the books.
Well, I did read the Queen of the Bee, and there's a part where they talk about the families at home and on their front yard. They go out, the kids are going bike riding, and they go out to the front yard and see three wild pigs.
Yes, and I've seen that. I used to bike with my friends. In the pandemic, we started biking, and we saw a huge dead boar in the area that we ride. And one night I'm like, we better get home. I do not want to be out here. They just tear up the ground. I guess they come out at night and they're just
Oh,
running
wow.
wild. They're like wild hogs running everywhere.
Who knew? Who knew? I wasn't expecting that to actually be part of the true story.
Yes, that is something. That's what inspired me to include that in the book, because when I moved here, I would see people's yards just dug up and I didn't know what it was. And they were saying that's from wild hogs.
Mm,
You learn something new every day.
Yes, yes.
wow.
So in reading the book, Sophie is a strong, the one thing that came across to me was she's a strong character. So I was just wondering, why you chose perhaps a female character as the lead main character. She's, she's smart. She has some fears, but she conquers her fears. So what was your thought process just around the main character, who you wanted her to be?
I guess I just wanted to show, well, the characters in the book are kind of based on children who attended a school that my kids went to called the Imani School here in Houston. That was the basis for The Queen of the Bee, the first book in the series. And they teach really kids to be strong, have self-confidence, and have a strong sense of their own strength and intelligence. Mm-hmm. So I guess that came across. But I just said it would be a girl. I don't know. I think because I'm female, maybe it's more comfortable for me to write from that female point of view. And she was 10 when I started the series. She's 10 and 11 in the whole series. And that was the age of my daughter and the kids that I was kind of observing and drew inspiration from. So I guess that's why I chose it. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Nice. I love it. What would you say is like your earliest memory of, just really thinking about, okay, this is really what I want to do?
Well, I've really wanted to be a writer since I was very young, really the age of my character in the book, because when I was in 5th grade, I won first place in a writing competition at my school. So we had to write and illustrate a book, and I wrote one on Mr. Peanut was the main character. I don't remember the story, but it won. And so that made me think, oh, maybe this is something I could do. I wanted to be a newspaper reporter because that's what I would see as a job. I really didn't know about a Black person being an author, so I never really thought of that as a possibility, I think, at that time, but I wanted to write. And then when I was in high school, I wrote an article that was published in my hometown newspaper. I'm originally from Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay.
And so it was published, my picture was in the paper, and I got $25. So I said, yeah, I got money and this is something I can do. I might be able to get a job. And my teachers encouraged me with my writing. So really from a young age, I've just always loved books, reading. I remember even sounding out letters when I was little, trying to read. So I just have always loved reading and writing and things like that. And I would be in little competitions in high school for writing. So I stayed in that. And then I became a journalist after college. I did internships at newspapers. And I ended up, though, getting an MBA degree because I wanted money. Because as a journalist, I wasn't making that much. And I was in a lot of dangerous situations in the job I was in. Because I would be out, murders would be on the loose. They had me out, bad weather conditions, and I wasn't getting paid that much. And then I was actually a business reporter. I would do the news beat for weekend jobs, and then they had me doing, but mainly I was a business reporter, so I was meeting a lot of people with MBAs. And then I got into that and got into marketing, which still allowed me to write. Mm-hmm. But then when I got married, had my kids, I just always loved to write, and I started doing freelance writing after that. So I've just always written, even in the corporate settings, I would be the one doing newsletters or whatever they needed that had writing involved.
So how was the process for publishing the first book?
It was different. I went with a hybrid company. Actually, before I started as an indie publisher, I went with a company, and they were taking a lot of my money because I didn't know how to do anything. I just paid them and said, okay, I'm going to publish this book. So that was kind of frustrating. So I kind of put the first book, Queen of the Bee, was kind of put on the shelf for a while because I was working another job. And then I just said, you know what? I believe in my books. I just love to write. So I was just writing these books, and I had written about 3 of them, and I got a really good illustrator.
Okay.
That's what happened. And once I got him, I said, I believe in my books. I know they can do well. So I just started heavily marketing them myself. And then I would do events constantly, like every other week I was going to different events. And then I'd post the pictures on social media. So people started seeing them around the country, and then they were buying them. So the process it's been an up and down roller coaster, from the beginning. It's been a lot of work, but I've really enjoyed all the things. I've had to learn a lot about publishing and, the different things you need to do to get your books out there and get people aware of them.
Have you noticed a difference just in terms of like the reception of your books? Because, before it was so scarce to find, like you said, like one of the reasons why you wanted to create a book was because there was a lack of representation out there. So have you found now that it seems like there's more of a shift and more people are actually creating books featuring characters of color? Do you find like a difference in the reception based on when you first started and till now?
Well, really though, when I first started, I didn't really market my books very much. I went to a few little events and I didn't really do much. So really 2018 was when I really started getting involved in different festivals. It was mostly live events for me until COVID. And I had a very positive reception from all races too. And see, I live in a very diverse community here in Houston anyway. So even, white people, Black people, everyone really liked the books, and they liked the diversity because my books include, there's the African-American main character, but there's also a Hispanic character, one from Nigeria, India. So there's different ethnicities represented, which really represents my community here in Houston, because it's one of the most diverse communities in the country, especially the county I live in too.
That's good. And how did your family respond to, like your kids, how did they respond to Moms and Authors?
They really, actually, Queen of the Bee, I kind of read that as bedtime stories to them when I was writing it, because I would be like, well, how do you like this? And they'd say, add more here, do more here. So they have been very supportive, my husband and 3 kids. They probably get tired because I'm always talking about my books, doing things. So they may be like, here we go again, But they've been very supportive, and they actually help me with storylines. I'll run them by them. So they've been excited about it, I guess.
That's good.
I was about to say, are they still kind of like your editors?
Well, especially my daughter. My sons don't, they help some. Really, my youngest son is 15. He helps me with my video things and social media, helping me do things with that. And they do actually, because the newest book I'm working on, I was talking to them about the storyline, my 2 sons, and they help me. So they still do help. And I'll even talk about, because each book has a problem. So I'll be like, I've got 11 books now, so you got to keep coming up with different things. And I'll talk about things going on in school, issue kids may face, and get their take on what they think, or even dialogue if they think something sounds realistic.
That's good. I was going to ask you if you have a formula for developing the story or developing what the next book will be about in the series.
And it really, just like when you said your theme was creativity. And one of the quotes I had was from Maya Angelou saying that the more you use, the more you have, or creativity isn't going to end. And for me, just the more I do, the more ideas come up. And I also have worked as a Sunday school teacher. I'm constantly around kids. So I see the things they do, and that generates ideas. But for me, when I started, I did sit down and I said, okay, I want to write a series. And I came up with different ideas of what Sophie could do. I said, one, she's going to play a sport. I wanted her to be in the spelling bee. The second book is about facing bullies. The Gamer is about video game play and setting limits. So I kind of came up with that. And I did a holiday book. I just wanted to do that. Secret Santa is a holiday book.
Okay.
And Hurricane came from my life when I was in the hurricane. But I'm not writing pandemic. So people ask me that. No, I don't want a book with masks on the cover. But yeah, some things kind of come from what's going on in my life, or I did plan out some things. And one book, Things You Didn't Know About Sophie, is about her getting into trouble because she doesn't tell the truth and she's not being true to herself. And that came, actually, my son was saying in the car one day, things you didn't know about me. And he was telling me all these things he had done that I didn't know when he was older, laughing about things you didn't know. And I said, that's a good book title.
I don't think I want to play that game with my mom.
Right. I'm like, how did he come up with this?
He probably thought it was too late.
Yeah, it was years back. It was from years back of stuff he had done.
That is too funny.
Have you found, just really thinking about like creativity, like have you found that during kind of like the pandemic and, really during the shutdown, did it inspire any creativity to create more during that time?
Well, in the beginning, I felt like I couldn't do anything. I felt just overwhelmed. And the more I would look at the news and do things, but then I'm a member of the Society of Children's Books Writers and Illustrators. And they had these free online sessions with different writers giving writing advice and tips. And I just started watching those and immersing myself. And that got my creative flow going. Because at the beginning, I was like, I can't write anymore. I can't write. And actually, my writing really was kind of like therapy for me, because I would just immerse myself in my stories and get in my own little dream world with my books. So that really helped me. I really kind of doubled down and just started really working harder during the time. So for me, because I actually wrote another book, which I didn't publish it. It was an adventure story. I was trying to get it traditionally published, but it was rejected. But then I've changed it to something else, and it's about a little boy. And so I'm trying to get it traditionally published. So for me, it really spurred my creativity, because I kind of tried to just hide out, especially during the summer and all that. My nerves could not take anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I really just focused on writing. So I felt like I just had creativity going, because I usually write 2 books a year, and I still was able to write 2 books in that time.
Nice.
So would you have any advice for aspiring authors as they think about the process, maybe like the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? So would you have any?
My advice would be to read widely in the area you want to write in, so that you can get familiar with what's popular in that area. Know that it's a long haul. Once you finish the book, the journey has just begun, because if you want readers, if it's just something that's a passion project that you want to do to feel like I wrote a book, fine. But if you want it to sell, you're going to have to dig in and do a lot of hard work. So be prepared for that. But and just good luck. And it's good. We need your voices. We need to hear different voices. And so don't be discouraged. And there's so many communities of authors online that you can join, in Facebook, Instagram, where you can get support and get questions answered.
Yeah, and we know there's content out there, and we know folks are out there creating stories about us, feature us.
There's so many. There's so many.
Right. And just making sure that we can let everybody know. That's definitely one of the things that we try to do with this platform, right? Is that because there's so many, and I think I believe we found you on Instagram as we were thinking about what authors, what books would we want to make a part of our book box when we were doing that. And so,
now, are you doing the book box? Are you?
So we took a pause, we took a hiatus. So being a new business, and Kanika, feel free to jump in, but being a new business, we had to figure out what direction, how to pivot. Certainly we started our business maybe a couple months right before COVID.
Yeah, about 2 months before COVID hit.
Oh man.
So that had its challenges. We talk about it because, we know folks really liked it and enjoyed it. So we want to think about how we can bring it back. But yeah, it was fun. And we love doing it because we love getting all the different books and then being able to engage with the customers as the kids would get them and open the boxes. Hopefully it's something we'll bring back.
Absolutely. And discovering different authors, because even, authors we hadn't been familiar with, and being able to, share, like Vanessa said, such great content out there that so many people don't know about. And so how do we make sure that it's more access for more people?
Yeah, it's something. And I think the publishing industry says that they're going to be making some changes, because actually in some research that I've seen, less than half of the children's books published are written about Black people, are written by Black people. So less than half of them are written by Black authors that star Black characters.
Yep.
So these statistics are a little startling, to say the least.
And I think as we embarked on this journey, that was one of the things I was surprised about, right? So we would find books that we wanted to include. And, when we started looking at the authors, right, because we wanted to use this as a platform to highlight own voice authors, right? So authors writing about their own experiences or from their own perspectives. I was quite surprised to find that so many of the books were written by non-Black authors.
Right.
Yeah.
By Kwanzaa or Juneteenth, and you are very limited in books that are written.
Yeah, that's what I noticed. So hopefully there'll be changes, and I'm so appreciative of you for offering this platform for me and other authors.
Absolutely. I think in that same vein, like, what does diverse representation mean to you?
To me, it just means providing relatable books that open those windows. I don't know if you're familiar with the psychologist Rudy Sims Bishop, who says that books should be mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. So, and it's just saying that they are mirrors where you see your own reflection, you see yourself in the book, making them relatable, and they're windows, opening the different worlds up to different people, and then sliding glass doors, making them aware of each other and working together. And that's something that we need in this world, obviously, with things going on, just people valuing other people, seeing their worth and learning about them and understanding them. So I think that diverse literature helps make that happen. And it starts with the young people at a young age. And I had an interview a couple of weeks ago with another educator who's talks about being conscious, and she tries to educate educators on diverse literature or diverse topics, not just literature. But we were talking about it, and people don't understand the differences in others and how that relates. And for me, when I was little, books that I read portrayed, for example, the Native Americans as savages and things. And I really kind of thought of them that way. And so it comes from, when you're young, these things are instilled in you. Because when I was older, I'm like, oh my goodness, that's just what I thought because of what I was taught, what was on TV with Lone Ranger and things like that. So we can make big changes with the youth, when we start young and expose them to different things. It can really impact the way that they think and the way they see the world.
Yeah, I think one of the things you said, I think I was looking at your website, right, was that we've got to have stories that are also diverse stories that mirror different aspects of our lives. So not always the hardship or the trauma stories, right? Like it's
right.
doing everyday normal things that everyone else does.
And that's another thing. I have a friend whose daughter a well-meaning teacher gave her, she read at a very high level. So in the 4th grade, she gave her Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. And then the little girl was just crying. She didn't talk to her about it, just handed her to her, a little black person on the cover. And I love that. That's one of my all-time favorite children's books. I love it, but that's a book you need to talk to the child about and discuss it. And she was a young girl. So in these trauma stories, they don't want to just see that, they don't want to feel like they're just downtrodden. And then that makes the other races see a Black child the same way. And those are very important stories that need to be told and that we need to know. We need to know our history, but we also need to see all facets of life in the Black community. And also just to make it something they can aspire to as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like you see these images over and over again and they start to stick in your brain as if that is reality, but there's so much more to who we are. I mean, we come in all shapes, sizes.
Right. And that even makes the kids not want to read, because my kids grew up in more of a middle class suburban area. They don't only want to read a slave narrative, and they'll be like, here she goes again. But they want to read, I want to read for pleasure too. I want to learn my history, but I want to just have fun with a book sometimes.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's one of the things that I look at. And I think Vanessa and I talked about a couple of weeks ago, just in terms of like the kids who are growing up today have such varied experiences than say us or our parents or grandparents. And so like the things that they connect with are also going to be different. And so like, what does that look like? And is there enough content? Because we know there is, and there's enough experiences for everybody to kind of get what they want or what they need from a book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. So you mentioned that you were writing another book, and I'm just curious, and only because we've had conversations with other authors and creatives, but do you ever think in your books, because you talk about sort of the middle school challenges, but do you ever think in your books you would highlight some of the things that are going on today in terms of like the Black Lives Matters movement? And do you think that you'll ever cover some of that content in any of your books, even if it's not the Sophie Washington?
Right. Maybe, yeah, if I wrote a different type of book. In my last book, actually, Class Retreat, they do tackle racism, but it's not really the Black Lives Matter movement. They are in the camp. They go away on a retreat in the camp, and there's some racists who make derogatory comments to the girls about their appearance and their hair, and they have microaggressions. So it kind of touches on that. Mm-hmm. But maybe one day. Now, actually, the book I'm trying to get traditionally published, it talks more about racial issues with the character, and there's a grandfather, and he talks about the civil rights movement and different things like that. So that book does talk a little more about those kind of issues.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're talking to, and I think we've asked this question a couple of times, do authors think that, those topics are too heavy for kids?
Right. And actually something interesting with Sophie Washington, that my book, Class Retreat, I got a horrible review from one person a Canadian person who's reviewed all my books, giving them glowing reviews. And I wondered if they didn't like the racism, because I don't know what their race is, but it seemed like it's not mine. I don't know. And I was like, oh no, they hate this book. And they were like, this is just unrealistic. And actually some of the incidents in it were based on things that happened to me and my kids. So, those are heavier topics. And yeah, Sophie Washington is more lighthearted, but they do have like the bullying story, the snitch, the bully is knocking them down. And it's one book, Hurricane, has an immigrant in it. So I do have some heavy, they're not really heavy issue books. That's true. Right. They're more lighthearted.
Right.
Stories. And that's really what kind of my lane, because if I get into young adult, that's a whole different structurally. My books are like 100-page books. They're all the same length and everything. So I would have to do a whole different thing.
Structure. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So I'm really not doing that now. Maybe one day.
I was about to say, as your last son kind of like grows out of kind of like the middle school, high school stage, do you anticipate creating like maybe more YA books?
I tried one time to write one, and it was because I go to these little writers conferences and critique groups. So they're like way longer than what I write, and it's a whole different structure. So to do that, I would have to spend a lot of time doing it. And I really love the middle grade age groups. Like that's what I like. Now, my newest book I did write that I'm trying to get traditionally published, it's about double the size. It's the longest book that I've written. So it's longer and it has more issues and things in there than Sophie Washington. And that could be a series if it's picked up. That might be, we'll see. I don't, if not, I may make it, publish it myself and have it. So, and actually one of the books in my series was purchased by Scholastic. So my book, Sophie Washington Code 1, this past December, they approached me and they bought paperback rights to one of the books in my series. And it's about the girls versus boys in a computer coding competition. So they bought that. I want them to buy it. They can buy all of them.
Right.
And get all of them.
One.
Right.
Hoping it does well and maybe they'll want some more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What do you, so like you stated, like our theme for this month is creativity. And so I know you talked about the Maya Angelou quote, just in terms of like creativity, but is there also like a word that like sparks creativity for you?
Maybe innovation, change. I think of, when I think of creativity, I think of innovation and continuous change. And I find myself, like even on Instagram and things, I'm inspired by the content you see, and then you may take it to a different level or put your own spin on things. So I think creativity comes from seeing art, seeing different things and putting your own spin and innovating on existing things.
Absolutely. I know no author ever wants to kind of like pick between their babies, but is there any of your, so you have 11 books in your series, is there any one that kind of like connects with you a little more than the others?
I don't know. That's when when people say that, I say it's like picking your favorite child. Of my books, I think my book, My BFF, I really like it because I have included poetry, Langston Hughes poems in there that I like. They're some of my favorite poems. They're doing a paper on Langston Hughes poem. Okay. And it's talking about friendship and the problems Sophie's having with her best friend and what being a real friend means. So that's one I like, but really it's kind of depends on different times. You asked me the question different, because at Christmas, I love Secret Santa. I think it's a sweet Christmas story. It has a twist in the ending. It's a surprise ending, and it's a really sweet story, feel-good story. And Mission Costa Rica, I had so much fun writing that because it has a crazy monkey. They get lost in the jungle, and it has all kind of crazy stuff going on. So that was a fun one.
Yeah, we've been to Costa Rica together, Kanika and I. So I think
y'all have too much fun.
We understand the crazy monkeys.
Absolutely.
It's so sweet that your friendship, having that long friendship and doing this stuff together, that is so nice.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned that well, where do people normally find your books? I know you have the Instagram presence, but where would people normally follow you?
They can get my books at my website at TonyaDuncanEllis.com. And through May 14th, I'm having a special where if you buy any book pack, I have 4 book packs in the whole series book pack, you'll get a free Sophie Washington coloring book that has almost 100 images from the series. And my books are also sold on Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, Walmart, and Target.com. And I'm also having a BookBub ad coming up if you buy ebooks. On April 24th, my book, Things You Didn't Know About Sophie, will be free on BookBub.
Okay. Yeah, we got to make sure we add all that information.
Absolutely.
All that information.
Absolutely.
do you do, I know we chatted before we started the conversation, but do you do, obviously with COVID, personal events where in-person events?
Yes, I love to do in-person events. I do virtual. I've been doing virtual school visits, so anyone can book me for school visits on my website at tonyaduncanellis.com. And prior to COVID, I used to go to book festivals. There was an African American Children's Book Festival in Baltimore. So I would go to festivals around the country. I've been doing everything virtually right now, and I'm not doing live events.
Right.
Maybe we'll see how things go, as things
Crossed,
are.
the world will open up, we'll be safe, and we'll be able to be outside again.
But I love to do virtual events, and I'm happy to do virtual events. I even go to book clubs and different things like that, and I can do pop in virtual visits. One of I have Sophie Washington ambassadors, which are kids that they get a Sophie Washington t-shirt if they're my ambassador, and they put them online. And one had a little Sophie Washington birthday party. And so I offer the plates and napkins on my website too.
Oh, that is so
That's
cute.
amazing.
Yeah, she's just so precious. She's been a fan of my series, for a couple of years, and she comes to all my virtual parties and different little things. So, and that's what I've loved to see, just the kids getting excited about reading and dressing up as the character, writing me letters. So that just warms my heart. And it's just all about them reading for me.
Right.
Keeping them engaged with reading and putting the electronics down and doing something that's going to help them grow and learn.
You're good when you can get a kid excited about reading.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I love kids. I really love children. That's why I'm so happy to be a children's author, because times I like talking to them more than the adults. And I miss the events where I can see them and talk to them about what they're reading and things they're learning in school and things like that.
It's always so interesting to hear. So can any of your fan readers expect more Sophie Washington in the near future?
Yes, I'm working on the newest Sophie Washington book 12, and I'm hoping to have it out by sometime this summer. Actually, I'm hoping to finish my first draft this month. So I'm a little more than halfway through, and I'm having a good time getting this ready. So fans of Sophie Washington, you should be able to expect another book this summer.
Nice.
So is there ever going to be, and I don't want there to be, so don't think this is the direction, but will there ever be an end to Sophie Washington? Like, do you kind of just,
I really don't know. I actually had intended for book 10 to be the end.
Uh-huh.
And then the kids were like, no, people kept wanting another one. So as long as I can keep having ideas, and this new one, I'm really excited about it. And it's a different idea. It's a fresh concept. Okay. And so I may have a couple more after that. I don't know. Now, I don't know. I may be on the cane. Yeah, Sophie. I don't know about that. I am excited also about my new project with the little boy. Yeah. So maybe I can do some more of those, spin-offs from that, or it's just one book. So maybe it can have some more coming from that.
Okay. Good to know. We'll keep an eye out.
Absolutely. So are you personally reading any good books?
Right now I'm reading an adult book. Well, let's think of the last kids book. I'm reading a book called The Midnight Library, and it's pretty good. I'm in a book club with my own friends, and we read a different book each month, and one of my friends selected that. It's kind of heavy and it's really fascinating to me, but it's kind of depressing too, because it's about coming through different lives and coming back alive over and over again.
Oh, interesting.
But I've been reading, it's National Poetry Month, and I read a book called The Land of the Cranes that was really great. It's a lyrical book, and it is about immigrants that are, the Hispanic immigrants and how they're treated. So it's kind of sad. Another really good book I would recommend for boys is Simon B. Ryman. I read that by Dwayne Reed. It is so good. And it's about a little boy, and he's helping the homeless in his community, and he likes to rap. So it's talking about, and it's just so relatable, and I loved it. I can't wait for his next book. He's a teacher, I think, the author.
I think
So
so.
hopefully he's a 4th grade teacher. I can't wait to read the next book that he comes out with. So the last 2 kids books I read was Simon B. Ryman and Land of the Cranes, and they were both very good books that I would recommend.
Awesome. Well, you definitely gave us an idea of who we need to be reaching out to next.
Absolutely.
I'm serious. I was sad when I finished it. It's so good. Yeah, you ought to get him on. He would be good.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Definitely have
Said we definitely need to reach out to more male authors, you know, because just like we noticed like a disparity in the number of authors of color who are creating books, we also noticed like that disparity in either male authors or even, you know, particularly African-American male main characters.
Right. That's why I wanted, the one book I wrote was an adventure, and I think it was set, and I hadn't written an adventure before, and it was rejected a couple of times from traditional, and I felt like, I don't know, you know, I wasn't sure about it. So I kind of reworked it, and I feel really great about it.
Nice.
So, and it's more a realistic setting, because that's what I'm used to writing. So I'm hoping that will be picked up by them. If not, I still want to publish it myself.
Absolutely. We'll still be looking out for it.
I was gonna say we're gonna keep our eyes out. Make sure we're promoting it as well.
Absolutely. We might every so often we might give you a nudge like, what happened to that?
Yeah, it's ready. So even if they don't take it, I'm going to give it a few months, and if it's not accepted, I'll publish it myself.
Nice. So it has been such a pleasure speaking with you. And we want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to know where to find you and to get to your website. So one more time, if you can let them know, like, how can people get in contact with you?
They can contact me through my website at TonyaDuncanEllis.com. And I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Tonya Ellis Books, and on Twitter at Tonya D. Ellis.
Nice. And we'll make sure that we put all of that in the comments in the bottom so that everyone can go out and get their Sophie Washington books and keep the movement going.
That's right. Yeah. Sophie Washington. Yeah.
Absolutely. We're gonna push it like you said, making sure that you're kind of like old and gray and still putting out these Sophie Washington books.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you so much. And everyone, you can also check out our website, storiesofacolorfulworld.com. Go there, join our newsletter. Also, you can find our picks of the month. We've said that our theme for this month is creativity. So we have several books that are inspired by creativity, characters showing creativity in different ways. It's also National Poetry Month. So definitely go on our website, check out our picks of the month and some of our bookshop collections. And just, we wanted to remind you that we have our Let Your Imagination Fly coloring contest going on. So go to our website, download the coloring sheet, and you can also find the contest rules. So we have 4 age groups. So kids starting as young as 3, as old as infinity can join. So we have our 3 to 5 group, our 6 to 8 group, 9 to 12, and then 13 plus. So we are encouraging everyone in the family, parents included, to come on and join our coloring contest. It runs through April 30th. So everybody go ahead and download those coloring sheets so you can go ahead and join. We're partnering with Lunabound Publishing for that. And so you can also go on her website, kidsforblacklives.com, And not only can you find the coloring sheet there, but also throughout the month of April, she is giving a 15% discount on all of her coloring books, crayons, all of her materials if you enter the coupon code SOCW15. So 15% discount with the coupon code SOCW15. And we have some special treats for you this month. We have 2 events happening on April 24th. So Carrie Luna from Luna Bound Publishing and I will be at the Shop Small Saturdays at the 333 Lounge in Brooklyn. So that's 333 Flatbush Avenue in Brooklyn from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. on April 24th. Also, we will be at the Atlanta Indie Market. So Vanessa will be there at the Best in Brewing at 1036 White Street from 12 to 5. So that's right on the Beltline's West Side Trail. So you can find her there from 12 to 5 in Atlanta at the Atlanta Indie Market. And so we'll both have copies of the coloring sheet so you can find them there. So tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend and meet us either in Brooklyn or Atlanta. But definitely you can go into our website and download the coloring sheet to enter. And we look forward to seeing you again next week. We want to thank Tonya again.
Thank you.
And we will see you guys next time. Have a good one.